Hello everyone, I'm Veena Shatrugna, a medical doctor actually, but have spent all my life working on women's health and nutrition. And today, of course, the topic given to me is about what is a balanced diet for youngsters who are spending the best part of their life sitting in front of computers, doing all the brilliant things that make India what it is today. Well, to start with, I'm sure there's so much knowledge already. You must have Googled, you must have discussed, you must have read, and a large number of people are on some diet or the other. I mean, as far as I know. But what I'm going to tell you is basic, but still not very basic. It's going to raise some comfortable and not very comfortable questions. Our assumption is that we know what is good for us and we've read everything about it and we know how to make choices. But you'll be surprised that 60 to 70% of a population that can afford good food is really ends up not getting all the nutrients that they should be eating. Now, this is not to create anxiety, but just to tell you that remember, we are a country that came out of a famine phase during and before independence, that our major anxieties were whether everyone gets enough rice, gets enough wheat, cereal. Okay, so for many years we stayed with cereal as the main diet, to such an extent that we even forgot about the other foods. If you know, in the 60s and 70s, if you told somebody, look, have you eaten enough food? We used to use the word rice in local languages. In Kannada it is, in Telugu it's annam, it is rice or whatever equivalent. In the north it is, if you eat enough rotis, that was food. But now after 90s, after liberalization, etc., when we've got all the fast foods on our retail shops, that we wake up to the idea that yes, there are nutrients in food that we must worry about. Otherwise, it was considered if you had a stomach full of rice, you had your food. And I think in many places that's still true. People coming from rural areas, people coming from small towns are happy if they've eaten enough food, which means eaten a plate full of rice, mountains of rice with some watery rasam, with some chutney, with some a bit of vegetable thrown in here and there. But now we've come to a stage where these markets have opened up for different kinds of foods, and all of us are shopping for what we think is the best for us. So we go from absolutely cereal-based foods to superfoods, to foods that help us with our immunity. With Corona, for instance, building up immunity was the biggest issue, and therefore we were all hunting around for foods that build immunity. But I'll come back to basics now. Why do we need food? Really, we need to go through a whole day of activity, of work, of professions, and of course work at home and some amount of leisure activity. Now, for all this, we require adequate food, and I don't mean just cereal. We require calories, but this is where the caveat is. Your calories come from many foods. We used to think that if you ate enough cereals, you got enough calories. So we know today calories come from cereals and from dals, which is pulses. Lots of calories come from fat as in ghee, oils, etc. Calories come from potatoes and fruits and nuts, etc. So you must get your calories from each of these. The bottom line is that all your nutrients, whether it's calories, proteins, fats, must come from multiple foods, not just one food. So, and one food must provide you with many nutrients, and I'll explain as I go along. So, when we are talking about calories, we say, okay, I've eaten enough rice. Or if you've already landed up in this end of the spectrum, you're searching out for super grains. To be frank, all grains contain 350 calories per 100 grams. No matter whether it's ragi, it's jowar, it's rice, it's wheat, it's bajra, whatever, they all contain the same amount of calories. The only difference is the fiber content, and if you're not used to these millets, for God's sake, you will end up with griping pain and you will find it difficult to digest. And lots of youngsters are, yes, it's true that if you malt the ragi, process it differently, you might be able to digest it. So all grains have the same amount of calories. It's the quantities that you have to decide. And how do you know you're having enough calories? Well, the bottom line is that if your weight is normal, and I don't have to tell you normal, I'm sure all of you have checked up Google to see what your normal weight for height, mind you. It's not just weight as weight. If you haven't put on weight, or if you're not losing weight, it just means you're eating enough for your daily sustenance. So it's a good, but if you're putting on weight, then you're just having a little more than you should be eating. So weight is your guide to determining whether you're getting enough calories. And as I told you, calories can come from cereals, from fat, from pulses, from nuts, from alcohol, beer, yes, all of that. So this is what you have to be careful about. Now, calories are essential, but children require much more. All of you know 3 times per kg body weight, or pregnant women, or older people. I mean, it depends on your weight, your calories are fixed. And for that, I'm sure there are sheets that will be available. Now, what do we do when there isn't enough calories? We just burn our muscle mass. Our muscles just melt away to provide calories. So people who are dieting, remember, if you're not exercising and eating enough protein, your muscles are wasting. And that is the danger of the dieting schedules that everyone is taking up. You melt your muscles and it's almost impossible to build it again without very heavy weight bearing exercises, taking extra protein. Building muscle is very difficult. Losing it is the easiest thing. And so a lot of youngsters today are going ping pong with weight loss, and then they try to build. And when you build weight, you build fat. The body just puts on fat around your tummy and other parts. So this is the thing about calories. Be very cautious when you're dieting. Make sure that there's enough protein and you do some muscle building exercises, which is weight training, really. So that is calories. And as I told you, you can't just live on calories, you require proteins. And that would be the most important thing, which is discussed ad nauseum. Eat more protein. Keto diets will tell you eat more protein. You have protein extracts, protein concentrates, protein, all kinds of proteins are sold in the market. My take would be, yes, protein very important, and please calculate, you need at least 1 gram per kg body weight. So if you're about 65 kgs, 65 grams of protein is what you require. But how will you get it? Remember, pulse, if you're a vegetarian, then your source of protein is pulse, it's nuts, it's milk, curd, paneer. If you eat eggs, I think that's bonus because that has good quality protein. The thing about protein is, if you have a good quality protein, they are called, it's like they give it a score of 100. And you shouldn't be surprised that milk protein and egg protein get a score of 100. Whereas all the pulse proteins get a score of 65. So you have to eat so much more pulse to get adequate protein. And this is not easy because many people like their dal pulses so thin that you can barely see the grains floating around. But if you're lucky, then you get your pulse through your idli or dosa or other preparations with pulses. But ideally, you should get all your protein, not all, more, a large amount of your protein from animal sources. And when I say animal sources, they are 100% available. When I leave, that is chicken and fish and eggs and milk and products made out of these foods. So protein is very important. Now protein can't be stored in the body. You have to eat enough protein every day. Protein is something that will help build your, heal your muscles, injuries. It's required for every reaction in the body. It's required for, even to break down your calories, it requires proteins. And to make your hemoglobin, for your blood, for your brains, for your, all bodily functions, proteins in microscopic quantities are called enzymes, which help break down calories, give you the energy to walk, to run, to play, or whatever you want to do. So proteins are very essential. Now, protein digestibility is also an issue. There's a whole fad about soya proteins. For God's sake, soya proteins are the least available, less than 40%. Its score is about 40, 45. And it's not native to us in India. We've sort of got it. It was meant to be chicken feed actually when it came into this country. We promised the best, we will grow your soya and we will send it back to you. We replaced groundnut with soya and landed up in a mess. So we don't know what to do with soya, so we sell it as soya protein. If you want soya protein, well then the best source is the way the northeastern people eat it or the Chinese eat it, that is fermented soya. And none of us know how to cook that kind of soya. So we are landed up with soya and without knowing what to do with it. The other danger is a lot of soya in the market is GM soya. So just be cautious when you go in for soya proteins. Whey proteins, well, you might as well drink milk instead of going after whey protein, because anything processed will always have an additive like something like a pesticide, something like a preservative. These are all chemicals. So why should you buy whey protein? Why not just make paneer and drink that water which has all the whey protein and calcium? So I would say get it off food rather than concentrates off the shelf. But then the markets have to sell you these ideas. So be cautious of soy protein. Try not to go into whey protein because it will have preservatives. And get your proteins from, if you're a meat eater, animal protein, then fish, eggs, chicken. And even the mutton in India is one of the best in the world because these are not stall-fed animals, remember. They go out grazing and they don't collect fat in their bodies. So in fact, Indian mutton is desired across the world because it's not stall feeding would mean the animals are locked up in a enclosure, fed artificial diets and fatten them up. Our mutton is lean mutton. So please don't fall into the trap of saying red meat is bad. It's not bad in India, thus far. Okay? So please go ahead and eat your animal proteins and also get your proteins from nuts, from dals and other sources that you would like. And now coming back to what will happen if I lose weight, how will I build back my muscle? For that I told you, you will have to do weight training exercises and eat a lot more protein, which is eggs and chicken and milk and curd and paneer and nuts, etc. Talking about proteins, I think it's important for us now to acknowledge that large numbers are into keto diets. And what is keto diet? It's a high protein, high fat, assuming that the body will just burn up all the calories. Because I told you calories are the ones that get stored as fat. I didn't tell you that, but calories get stored as fat. So if you eat enough fat and more protein, your body fat will also get mobilized. That's the assumption. But I would say a lot of caution. I would say please rethink. Ultimately, it's the kidneys that have to throw out all that protein. Protein is nitrogen, which in large amounts can be toxic. Once proteins break down, they create a lot of urea and other products, creatinine, etc., which puts a lot of load on the kidneys. And kidney function tests must be done regularly and maybe do it for a short time, give it up. I know people who are happy doing it for 2 weeks, then they give up for another 2 weeks, then do it. I don't know what will work with you, but please don't go on indefinitely with keto diets. That would be my advice. A body is not meant to store or eat so much fat and protein. That's the bottom line. Now coming to fats, fats are also a very important nutrient. Now everyone looks at fats like they give them a stepmotherly treatment. Actually fats are very important. Your brain is like major amount is fat. Every cell in your body is covered with a fat envelope. If there was no fat, molecules would go in and out of cells and make a mess of your body. So fats really prevent a molecule of a particular kind entering a cell that where it's not wanted. For instance, glucose. Glucose is not meant to enter certain cells, so the fat molecule will stop it, or certain hormones, or certain small enzymes, etc. Fat is very important. Fat is very important because the fat soluble vitamins have to be absorbed only possible if they come with a coating of fat. So when you're taking fat soluble vitamins like vitamin A, D, E, K, please try and take it with a fatty diet, okay? And without that you'll go into a huge deficiency. Now, trying to label fat as a culprit, I think, is now no longer done, though many doctors are still not up to date. It is a real sad day when it was decided that fats are the culprit. I'll tell you why it was a sad day. One of the presidents of US had a heart attack, and when they were examining him, this was in the 70s, they found he had high cholesterol, and they blamed cholesterol immediately. And after that, not just the whole of America, but the rest of the Western world went off eggs, went off any food that had, and all animal foods too, can increase cholesterol, because cholesterol comes from animal sources. And as a result, people stopped taking eggs, the yellow of the eggs, stopped taking animal foods, but it ended up in another disaster, because ultimately you have to feel full, your body needs satiety. They started eating more carbohydrates. When I say carbohydrates, I mean calories from cereals. And the real epidemic of heart attack starts after that, because cereals in excess, carbohydrates in excess. Remember, cereals contain carbohydrates, carbohydrates are the calories, so that's the link. Really causes excess carbohydrates, actually builds up a kind of fat called triglycerides in the body. So the pattern of heart diseases changed in the West, where instead of high cholesterol, they had high triglycerides, obesity, because all the extra cereals go and sit in your body as fat. So this is, I think, only in the last 5-6 years that the whole history has been resurrected and recast to remind us that we never consume more than 300 milligrams of cholesterol from eggs or from meat. And that is not the major source of cholesterol. It's true, a high cholesterol is a problem, but it's not the food cholesterol that's a problem. The problem is the liver produces a lot, which goes and clogs your arteries. So cutting down yellow of the eggs, please don't, because eggs are a complete food for children, for everyone, except vitamin C. It has every other nutrient. So eggs are a powerhouse. Please don't say no to eggs. Now, anyone who is anti-egg for other reasons, I have nothing to say, except to say please rethink, relearn nutrition, because eggs are really wonderful food for children and they should all get it. Now, coming to fats again. Fats are of different kinds. Please don't assume that only something that looks like a solid fat like dalda or palm oil is fat. Your oils are fats. They all come under the category of oils. So we call them oils and fats. Actually, they all are fats. And it has so many calories compared to carbohydrates. If carbohydrates have 4 calories per gram, fats are 9 calories. And fats, the volume is much smaller. 1 gram, the volume is so small, you can consume 9 calories with just 1 gram. Now, how much fat does one require? About 30 grams of visible fat, that is the oil that you buy in the market. But then that is what you will eat at home. If your requirement is 30 grams, please cut down the fat further if you are eating out all the time, because food outside is rich in fat. Fat makes the food very tasty. That's one of the reasons food outside is so tasty, because it's only floating with oil on top. So if you're eating only home food, 30 grams per person per day is ideal. But I think most of us eat out 2 or 3 times a month, or if not more. Then please cut it down to 20 grams, which means a family of 4 20 grams or 25 grams per head, just multiply into 30 into 4 and you know how many kilos of oil you should be consuming. But this is all oils, not just one oil. Then comes the question of which oil should I have. Ideally, please change your oils or eat all kinds of oils. Don't stick with one oil. So if you're a groundnut, you love groundnut oil, please include sesame, that is till oil. If you're from North India, mustard oil is wonderful. Rice bran oil is also good. So please buy 3-4 types of oils. So for dosas, you can use till oil for. Now I know you men are not going to make the dosas, but surely you could discuss it with your partners and your parents, and they'll also be happy. Remember, India is the only country in the world that has so many oils. Other countries are not endowed as much as we are endowed. So make the best use of it. Try not to have refined oils because they extract all the other substances which are very protected. Oils have, for instance, that's why they say hand pressed oil is good, ghani oil is good, just filtered oil is good. Try and look for those kind of oils. And please use 2 or 3 types of oils every month. Don't fall for the olive oil story. Our groundnut oil is as good as olive oil. Now what is it that distinguishes one oil from the other? It's really the fatty acids. Oils are made of fatty acids and they are saturated, unsaturated, monosaturated. They are all classifications. But remember, children require monosaturated, which are abundant in ghee. So don't stop children from having ghee. And I think everybody else should be able to enjoy a spoon or 2 of ghee every day if they like it. There's no such thing as no to ghee. If you enjoy it, please go ahead. And they contain monosaturates which are very important for the brain development. Brain and every nervous tissue is covered with fat, and that's why it is so important. So use different oils, cut down the total oil consumption should be reduced, but please use a variety. Try not to use refined oils. Try and use oils of seeds that you eat. Don't use oils where the seed is inedible. Like groundnut, you eat seeds, so groundnut oil is good. You eat till, the oil is good. So I don't know about the rest of the country. Mustard is good. Soya bean, I would say it's too much of N3 fatty acids. Be cautious. Occasionally is okay, but yes, oils, total quantities is what. Look, talking of fats, I think it's important for us to say that coconut oil, which has been so badly blamed for all kinds of problems, is really as good as any other oil and should be used and can be used. Except that, remember, your total fat intake should not cross 25-30 grams, is what ideally is what we should all be cautious about. But yes, coconut oil, then instead of going after olive oil, I would say this would be a thing that, especially if you're used to coconut oil, please don't cut it out of your diets. The other important thing is sunflower, safflower oils, which were sold as heart protective oils. Today it turns out they have too much of unsaturated fat. And too much of unsaturated fat, today we know, which is called linoleic acid, is known to cause cancer because it releases free ions, and that is known to be cancerous. So please don't overuse these refined safflower, sunflower oils. Yes, for frying they are useful because their the fuming capabilities are not so bad, but otherwise they are not a desirable oil that you should be going after. Talking about used oil, once you start frying in a oil, I would say use oil, fry once, then reuse it for something else. But I don't think we can have control over that out in the market. So there are small outlets that keep reusing oil for frying, and that will cause problems. It changes the very characteristic of these fatty acids. They are very large molecules and they change with frying and can be cancerous. So do avoid such places where frying takes place and the oil is reused more than once. At home we can control it, yeah. Fry and then try and use minimal oil for frying and then use it up in your cooking. So that would be the thing with oils. Now about diet fads, we already spoke about keto diets. There again, there's a lot of fat that is allowed and it can cause problems. Uh, the important thing is you can't avoid fats and don't try and avoid it. They are necessary, especially children, because it's necessary for brain development. Coming to other nutrients which are very, very important, and I don't have to talk about it, but yes, I will quickly touch on them. Vitamins and minerals. Among the vitamins, they are labeled A, B, C, D. I suppose there was no time to give it exotic names, and A, B, C, D was ideal. But some of them are fat soluble, so without fat in your diet, they won't get absorbed. But it's also important to remember that certain vitamins are ideally procured from animal foods. And when I say animal foods, I mean flesh foods. That would be B12, it would mean vitamin A and folic acid and riboflavin. The riboflavin is a B vitamin, folic acid is a B vitamin, B12 is a B vitamin. So though they are water soluble, they are really the best sourced from animal foods. Now B12 you cannot get from plant foods. So how do people manage with B12? There's huge deficiencies are there. Today we have methods by we can estimate deficiencies. But how did vegetarians get B12? So there was a lot of debate on it. And we realized the deficiencies are appearing only now because in these departmental stores you get clean food, rice, dal, vagara, which is clean. Earlier we had a lot of worms in our foods and they were our source of B12. Now I know it is not desirable source, so it would be ideal if you got your B12 from flesh foods or as tablets, capsules, etc. But B12 cannot be sourced from plant foods. You can Google, you might find somebody who will tell you fermented or sprouted, but you can't get the amount that you require. And with B12 deficiencies, people have terrible, terrible problems because every cell requires B12. Multiplication of, remember every cell is multiplying, okay? The old cells are dying, the new ones are coming up. And with B12 deficiency, you're going to have huge body pains, leg pains, you name it, sleeplessness. And some people have gone into almost like a semi-paralytic state because they were staunch vegetarians and refused to get B12 from. Milk has a little bit, but not as much as you should get. Now coming back to vitamin A, the problems today are vitamin D deficiencies. That's because most of us have been at home in the lockdowns. We were not even allowed to go out and see sunrise, many of us. And therefore, vitamin D deficiency has cropped up in a very big way. This can give you bone pains, it can give you all kinds of symptoms. But vitamin D is not easy to get unless you're exposed to sunlight. And when I say you're exposed, I don't mean your clothes are exposed. Your skin has to be 30% of your skin surface, which means face, hands, legs, really legs up till above the knees, exposed to sunlight for at least 30 minutes. And how many of us really sit in the balcony exposing ourselves to sunlight? Earlier, yes, you went out, you walked in the sun, you played in the sun, you socialized in the sun. Today with sunscreen, lotions, even that is not possible. People are so cautious. Not having sunlight hit your body lands you in a D deficiency, which has long-term consequences. Remember, bones are not tissues that immediately show up as hurt or as affected or diseased. But in the long run, it can cause many problems called osteoporosis and bone pains, etc. So vitamin D, ideally consume it as a medicine if you can't expose your body to sunlight. But please try sunlight as a source of vitamin D. It would be ideal. And the best time is 11 to 3 o'clock, not early morning. Though early morning is sort of constantly spoken about, but it's 11 o'clock to 3 o'clock when it's not cloudy. So these are all caveats. Very few people can stay at home at that time. So vitamin D as a medicinal sachet is being consumed by most people today. So whereas vitamin A is, yes, you can get it from colored vegetables, green leafy vegetables, carrots, etc. But you have to eat a lot. You have to eat like a cow. Keep on eating the greens and carrots, etc. You will get your vitamin A. But it has a preformed vitamin A called beta carotene. And children, yes, very important that they get these vegetables because it's so important for eyes and cellular growth. Coming to all the other B complex vitamins, yes, they are available in vegetables, fruits, but try and take a variety which is colored. I don't mean artificially colored because a lot of vegetables are dipped in colored water, but green, yellow, orange fruits, vegetables will provide you with all the vitamins. Coming to minerals, most important, iron. Now, iron is not easily available in food. You have to eat a large number of foods to get iron. The reason is iron is very toxic. It's not an element that you should be eating in gram quantities, but get it from your food. And if, of course, there's anemia, then you have to take medicinal iron. But otherwise, try and get it from food. You'll be surprised that most foods will have a little iron. So if you eat a variety, you will get your quantities. But if you stick to one food, like just rice or just you want to eat 2 or 3 kinds of foods, then chances are you will get anemic. Now for anemia, it's not just iron, you also need good protein and magnesium and folic acid, a whole range of vitamins. So if you're anemic, ideally try, if it's not too low, about 9 grams, you can try food, varieties of food with a small a tablet for 1 or 2 months. Otherwise you might need injections or even blood transfusion if people are below 7 grams. So it depends on the extent of anemia. The other minerals are of course magnesium and zinc. Zinc is one of those which are not being acknowledged so far, but they are necessary for muscle building. And zinc is not easily available in every food, but yes, nuts have a lot of zinc. Till is loaded with zinc. So please try and eat seeds that they are called oil seeds. They have a lot of zinc. And nuts are good fillers. If you're hungry in the evening and you don't want to load yourself with more carbs, eat a 50, I would say 30 to 50 grams of nuts. They give you a lot of good fat and good minerals and other nutrients. But the most important thing today we know is what are called antioxidants, flavonoids, organic acids. So earlier we thought food needed calories, proteins, fats and vitamins. Okay, you had about 10 to 20 vitamins and minerals. But today we know there are 300 compounds in food which are antioxidants. Now what are these? These come naturally in food, both in plant foods and animal foods. They are anti-cancer. Occasionally you will hear of haldi, that is turmeric, which is so good. An occasional paper which the West discovers and publishes it. But there are 300 and they mop up oxygen molecules. Oxygen is a very toxic molecule, ion. A molecule is not toxic, a molecule will be O2, but the ion is very toxic. And every reaction in the body produces these toxic ions. The antioxidants from fruits and vegetables mop it up and know how to detoxify it. So they are really antioxidants of a whole range of them. 300, if you Google, you'll get the whole names, and they are necessary for the body. They are also postpone aging of tissues. They help keep a tissue healthy. They help in many, many ways to make sure that the body doesn't collapse under any kind of stress. So, but that you get from fresh foods. You can't get it from tinned foods. You can't get it from eating pizzas and burgers all the time. So remember to pick up a large amount of foods which are fresh from the market and consume it in the way you like. Also, one last thing would be, don't overcook your vegetables. Let them be crispy, let them not be smashed beyond recognition, because most of the nutrients will get lost. Iron will not be lost because iron is a hardy metal, but all the other vitamins will just disappear. So please remember to do a light kind of tossing around vegetables. Let them stay crispy so that your nutrients are intact. As it is, there's so much of additives and fertilizers and pesticides that the body needs to detoxify, and it has to come from your fruits and vegetables. All the antioxidants are detoxifying your body. So this would be the possible extent to which I can sort of share my ideas. But yes, if there are any more, it's worth discussing further.